It is 1:30. We will call our regular March meeting to order. All commissioners are present. We'll go around the room and do introductions. Start with you.
Randy Warburton, Morrow.
Morrow.
Lisa Middlesworth, Morrow. Eileen Hendricks, Morrow. Anna Brown, Morrow.
Rob Schultz, Morrow.
Chad Snyder for Morrow.
Erica, Morrow.
David Over Castillo, Life Insurance.
And online,
Yes, online.
start with John Doherty.
John Doherty, City of Hebner.
And Crawford.
Dave Sykes, Morrow County Commissioner.
And if you're there, we cannot hear you, just so you know.
Sam Tucker, I didn't hear you. Sam Tucker, General Counsel of Port.
Okay, thank you. Jessica,
Jessica Esparza, Port of Morrow.
Griffin Beach,
Griffin Beach, Elkhorn Media.
thank you. Kelly,
Kelly Morgan, Lamb Weston.
thank you. Jackie,
Yes, this is she, here on my own behalf.
and Aaron,
Aaron Palmquist, City of Oregon.
Scott. Scott, are you there?
Yeah, this is Scotty Zoe with Oregon Fire.
And Ryan.
Hey everyone, Ryan Gleason, CFM Advocates, Port of Morrow Contract Lobbyist.
You.
Okay, sounds like everything. Was there any on that sheet?
Yes, there's no one.
Okay, no one.
Well, maybe before we get started, I'd like to just ask for an addition to the agenda on old business under other, just ask for an update. Okay, please.
Okay,
For what?
For Edgar update.
Oh.
We're all good. And also with that, we'll give a PNWA update. Get that on. Okay, anything else in there? Moving on to our consent agenda, we got three sets of minutes to review.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve all three, unless someone else has an objection.
Okay, John has moved.
Oh, second.
Okay. Joel, second. Any other discussion on those on the consent agenda items? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimous. So I guess with that, Rick, explain what you just told me about the.
So the last, at least for sure, the last provision meeting, we had the discussion about having to conduct a roll call vote for every vote. In doing some research, that is not necessarily the case. We can do a normal vote by, the so that we just did. The only thing that has to happen is the minutes need to reflect the actual vote of each individual commissioner. So we can't just list passed unanimously, like our minutes show in the last one. It shows all of us and what our vote was in the affirmative or against.
So now I can just say, yes, Kelly, Rick, Joe, no, John.
Yes.
I can say that only time we need a roll call vote is if there's a difference, if we have it, then we can roll call.
And with the roll call, at any time, any commissioner can request a roll call.
Get that clear for another month. We may change that later. Okay. Next is our legislative updates. I see Ryan is on the line. Go right ahead, Ryan.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. And Kirby is here too. He just was joining a couple minutes late, so he can go ahead and go after me. But thanks so much. Yeah, Ryan Gleason with CFM Advocates. Really happy to be here with you today. Things in the legislature are starting to move really quickly. Today we had a really spicy bill up for discussion on the Senate floor, Senate Bill 916. It would allow striking workers to receive unemployment insurance benefits. It did pass. With the bare minimum number of votes, 16 to 12, after a long debate and a minority report from the Senate Republicans that ultimately did fail. But we are really getting into the meat of session. So the co-chair of Ways and Means and the presiding officers have released their budget framework that came out this week. That is based off the March 2025 revenue forecast. The framework is being developed in a period of notable uncertainty, which I know the port is very familiar with, just due to some of the conversations around cuts with federal funding. And I know that Kirby has been keeping you all posted with how that's been going. But for the state budget, we currently receive about 32% of federal funding. And the framework makes basic assumptions and includes 10, 20, and 30% reduction options in the event of federal funding cuts. So after accounting for a retained balance of approximately 590 million in general fund and discretionary lottery funds, there's approximately 990 million for discretionary spending. However, if funded by the legislature, the governor's initiatives, which include housing, behavioral health, and education, those would utilize all of that available funding. So the legislature has some really tough decisions ahead to balance the needs of Oregonians and fund some really critical projects. And just like every legislative long session in that budget building year, the Joint Ways and Means Committee begins a roadshow to hear from Oregonians across the state and their budget priorities. So this year, the Joint Ways and Means Committee is going to travel to various locations, including Gresham, Astoria, Warm Springs, LaGrande, Salem for an in-person and virtual option, and Klamath Falls. So those are opportunities for Oregonians to talk to legislators, about their budget priorities. Earlier this year, the Port Commission took a position on House Bill 2725, which would change the Strategic Investment Program. The bill went to the Joint Transportation Committee originally, and that was by mistake. The only action that has been taken so far on the bill has been to move it to revenue, which is a more appropriate place for the bill to be discussed. And then rather having the second chamber work session deadline apply, which would happen in the Joint Transportation Committee, the Revenue Committee does not have any deadline. So the bill is now alive until the final gavel at the end of session. So the port is supportive of the Dash 2 amendment that would allow more ports on the eastern side of the state to remain in the program. The Port of Morrow also engaged in House Bill 2169, bill that would establish state policy on water reuse. The base bill listed a number of state agencies that would be involved in the interagency water reuse, a team being proposed in the bill. The port submitted supportive testimony and work with the bill sponsors to get additional agencies included, as well as some other provisions. That amendment was adopted this week, and the bill is moved out of committee this week and down to Joint Ways and Means Committee, where they make decisions about bills that cost the state money. So if passed, this bill would establish that new water reuse team and would have a really important beneficial impact on the port's water reuse program. Some really challenging water conversations have begun around water transfer bills. There's one in the House and two in the Senate. These bills would have significant impacts on water rights holders, both surface and groundwater, and would have been a cause of concern for many municipal governments, special districts, and agricultural partners. I've been working with the board to understand what the impact would be, and as the bills continue to move through the legislative process, work on some potential amendments to ensure minimal impact as possible. Also on the waterfront, there's a bill that would alter the groundwater management area designation process in Oregon. This bill has been brought forward by Governor Tina Kotek and her office, and the primary goal is to really utilize the lower Umatilla Basin as kind of a lessons learned opportunity to fix how we get to the groundwater management area and expand the use of the groundwater quality concern area designation. There are a number of entities providing the governor's office important feedback on the bill to improve the language and the process, and there's a tentative hearing being planned for early April on the Senate Natural Resources Committee. That would be right before the deadline. But this bill would either need to pass out of the Chamber of Origin, which is the Senate, or it would need to move to the Rules Committee. That's my update for now. I took a little bit too much of your time. I apologize. Happy to take any questions, and I will continue to keep the folks posted as more bills and opportunities to engage in the legislative process come up.
Questions? I have one. When does session end?
I do not have the calendar in front of me, but I believe it's June 29th. It's 160 days. And I can follow up with you on that, Commissioner.
I'm sure that's gonna be close enough. I just wanted to generate. Okay, anything else, Brian? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next is old business. Oh, excuse me, Kirby's up there. Sorry, Kirby, I just about dumped over you there.
No worries, no worries. I know you got your fill of me last week, so I don't blame you for skipping. But I'll try to keep things brief today, even though there's quite a bit going on in DC. Big news is that Congress avoided a government shutdown last week. All it took was Lisa, Mark, and Commissioner Taylor coming out for a visit, whipping everyone into shape. So thank you for doing that. But basically what happened is Congress funded the government by passing a year-long continuing resolution that basically extends last year's funding levels through the rest of the current fiscal year. That's pretty extraordinary sign of Congress's current state of dysfunction. I think this was the very first government-wide year-long CR they've ever passed, because basically they just couldn't come to terms on a new government spending bill. They had been negotiating and were getting pretty close, but they got stuck when it came to trying to navigate issues around the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and the Trump administration spending cuts. Despite even that impasse, the prevailing thought was that Republicans were going to have to stay at the negotiating table because everyone thought they were going to need Democrats to get a bill even out of the House chamber. But they ultimately decided to put a simple, clean, continuing resolution on the House floor, and every Republican but one voted for it. So that, I think, kind of caught Democrats off guard, sent it over to the Senate, where they were Senate Democrats were basically jammed because they had the choice to either vote for a bill they didn't like or shut the government down. And enough of them voted for it, and that provided appropriations for the rest of the fiscal year and wrapped things up. So we're done with FY25 now. That means no changes to funding, basically, compared to last year. It also means no earmarks. All of the earmarks that were included within the FY25 bill were cut from it, and we'll have to start all over again for FY26. So that is kind of a bummer development for a lot of folks. It also will now clear basically bandwidth for Congress and Republicans, especially, to continue their work on this massive reconciliation package they've been working on. They're hoping to include tax cuts, energy reform, border security, defense spending. So expect to hear a lot about that in the next month or two. So like I mentioned, the port was in DC last week for PNWA. It was great to have everybody in town. We had meetings with EPA to discuss the WIFIA loan, and then we met with staff from Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, and Congressman Bentz's offices. We gave them the update of where things stand on our WIFIA loan application. And then with Merkley and Wyden, we discussed the community-initiated projects or earmarks that we worked to submit at the end of February for this next appropriations bill that Congress will be working on. And just wanted to touch on that real quick because I think my last update was right before we submitted those. So at the end of February, we worked with essentially 4 different entities in the area to submit applications. The first was with Morrow County for the Morrow County Clean Water Consortium. The request is $2 million in federal appropriations to help design safe drinking water infrastructure systems to reach communities that are reliant on high nitrate wells. The second is a request with the Mid-Columbia Water Commission for $2 million for a nitrate remediation project, basically pumping out nitrate water, groundwater, and then diluting that with Columbia River water and land applying it for crops to permanently remove those nitrates. And then the third is a request with the city of Ione to renovate their Legion Hall into a basically business incubator type space. And then the last is a request with the city of Boardman to address the exit 165 interchange and provide a roundabout and complete planning for the future for both that space and also exit 164. And the port would provide a match of about $500,000 for that. So obviously we know that getting all 4 of those requests will be tough, especially considering that all these FY25 projects that were cut out of the funding bill for last round are now going to have to be folded into FY26. So it'll kind of crowd out the space quite a bit. We've got our work cut out for us, but we think these are all good projects and all at least have a chance. So with that, I will wrap things up, but happy as always to take questions.
Yes, Lisa.
Kirby, thank you for talking about earmarks so that we have the update on earmarks for 2025. We didn't have any in there that were harmed, so that's a good and bad thing. We want to continue to have earmarks. The Morrow County Consortium, was Morrow County the applicant on behalf of the Clean Water Consortium? Do you know how that ended up going in? Or was it Morrow County Consortium?
I believe the application was from Morrow County itself, but was that your question, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was just Morrow County, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. And that's it.
I guess I have a question on just the budgeting of the recharge project with CDA. Has the port committed funds to that or not? Or are we just doing the earmark? I don't remember discussing
The
funds.
port committed funds in 2018
Something like that.
for recharge.
Might have been
2017. 2017.
So where did that money go to? Who's in charge of it? Who would be in charge of doing that, or who would do that work, the recharging?
Well, the idea was to recharge or to pull groundwater out, pump it out, and then blend it in the CID line.
Okay.
And take it out. That was the whole idea. And then take some of the water and then do a recharge, actual recharge in the winter time with clean water.
Would the port do that, or is it?
Well, Jake Madison's a big part of it because he needs the water. So he was a partner in the project.
Okay, that's
But
it.
the cost is way out there.
More than the 2 million from the port.
Yeah, way more.
Okay, I noticed that it went before the Morrow County Board of Commissioners for support. Must have been to submit that earmark request, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I can chime in. I think that, yeah, it was the same project. Morrow County provided a letter of support for the initiative, and yeah, the Mid Columbia Water Commission would be the recipient and fiscal agent of the funds if it was successful.
Thank you.
Anything else for Kirby? All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
Okay, then, I guess now is old business, CDA update. Greg will be with us today. I sent out, the question I have is the Boardman fire letter that you guys got. So looking for direction on that. So we, at the last CDA meeting, I asked the board to kind of not move that forward with the county. But coming back, now Greg provided us this more information that we have a signed agreement. The CDA has a signed agreement with Boardman Fire. And as it alludes to in there might be a litigation if that doesn't go forward.
I have a fairly simple answer to it, and because you all know my feelings on this issue, and the support of Oregon Fire trying to build up a program there and annexation of the CDA property, so I'm gonna make a motion, and it'll be up for discussion, we can talk about it then, all right? If we get a second. I move to instruct the Port of Morrow CDA rep to make a motion that the CDA at their next meeting, give a 30-day notice to Boardman Fire, terminating the insurance fire support agreement memo, and direct that all CDA property in Morrow County proceed and apply ORS 478 for annexation and fire protection under with and from Oregon Rural Fire Protection District. It would negate any future lawsuits. It would address the issue, it would.
Memorandum was in our packet, right? Yeah. I thought it was 30 days for our discussion, but can one side end it much clearer?
Well, the problem is you have a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they need a second or something.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, John's moved and Kelly has seconded. So, yeah, what would the question be?
So the request is that you, Joe, would go and make a motion at the CDA board meeting to terminate the agreement with Boardman Fire, giving them proper notice, and proceed with annexation for Oregon Fire District. And of course, that I would assume require Oregon Fire to take over at the cessation of that 30-day notice. They would have to take over protection of the CDA immediately. I'm assuming because we don't want to injure the fire support there. So that's it. You all know my feeling about building up the program there and the tax base that Boardman Fire already has here. I appreciate what Boardman Fire does. Don't get me wrong. That's not the issue. It has to do with for me, equity with other towns and building a program.
So is this the document that was attached to this?
Yeah.
I didn't receive it, and so I haven't read it.
Oh.
So I don't know the contents of that, so I can't give you an informed decision without.
This is the only thing.
That you're making a decision on.
This email right here.
Yes.
This
So
is-
that and the letter from Gordon Fire, the actual agreement. Memorandum of understanding that was in the pack.
I guess.
And so did the.
I don't know if it's in here.
Yeah, well, business. That's the design MOU.
Yeah.
I guess maybe my question would be to council regarding the MOU. And if that's the legal process that we would go through, if there was a 60-day or 30-day, whatever John mentioned. You know, is an MOU a binding contract with that, or is it just an understanding agreement? I guess I'm asking Sam. To be fair, Sam just got sent that.
Yeah.
I mean,
John, okay, please come up with the 30-day notice. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
Well-
not there that I didn't see.
I think it was in the MOU with Boardman Fire. You have to give notice. Should it be, at least I assume that was the case. If it's not,
I'm not sure if Sam has time to read it. If he wants to respond, that's his choice. Okay. Sorry.
my apologies. If it's supposed to, if it's longer, then I'll amend my motion.
Is it in our vote?
Yeah, giving the other party 30 days written notice. Agreement in the meantime, term, immediate modification, the term of this agreement will commence upon the effective date. Either party may request an evaluation of or changes to this agreement at any time by giving 30 days notice. The change would be termination in my motion.
Yeah, but that language did, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, okay, so you were saying that termination was part of that paragraph?
Well, I mean, how do you have a contract if you can't get out?
Well, I'm not saying you don't, but I thought you were reading the.
Oh, I'm sorry,
language
the
from that,
exact
so-
words, no. My interpretation would be, modification in this case would be termination. But you're welcome to read it, it's on page 2 of the MOU, term and modification.
Is Sam reading that? Sam, are you following the conversation?
I am following the conversation. I'm not up to speed on that. My thought would be, without looking at it, without reviewing the documents, that if the memorandum would allow a modification, then you can direct the representative CDA to move to modify by termination. That would be consistent with the term modification. That would be my understanding. Also, he asked to amend his motion, so that would need a second.
Do that again.
I think we all need to get we need to read this paragraph. I don't think that's what that says.
I've read it a couple times, and my impression of it, if there are any issues, they need to give written notice within 30 days. To the parties will promptly set a meeting to resolve those issues. And amend this agreement.
Yeah, no amendment, change, or modification of this agreement will be valid unless in writing and signed by the parties here too.
John amended his motion. You don't have a second to that amendment yet. That's what
So you did.
So- So that's the problem with a lawyer weighing in on something that he does not know anything whatsoever about. Strike my comment and make the comment, I don't know what you're talking about, okay?
He said 30 days notice. and
Well,
that's-
no, I think John amended his, but we would have to have I think what the attorney is saying is we would have to have a second to John's amendment.
Before you discuss.
Well, I don't, what do I need an amendment for exactly? Yeah.
Did
He
you make
didn't
an
make
amendment?
No, I didn't.
He said he would amend it if it needed to be
If it
60
needed.
days. Okay.
Yeah, if it said, yeah, that's what.
Back to the term.
If it did say 60, you would have meant, but it does.
It doesn't, it says 30. Now, if it says modification, I will amend my motion to say that I would request a motion be made to remove the annexation request. And, to modify, if you're saying I can't discontinue it, if the CDA cannot cancel this contract, which I find shocking, actually. I would ask that the CDA vote on modifying it so that it's not required, or there is no requirement in this document to give annexation to Boardman Fire. So whichever direction we need to go, I'm willing to make that.
I would just say that I don't think we're saying it can't be done, but I don't
Okay.
see and hear any language that says it can be done. Either or, it's unclear to me. I think we should allow time for our legal counsel to review all the documentation, including this email. And I'm assuming maybe, again, maybe our legal counsel reach out to the legal counsel of the CDA to gain further understanding of what the potential issue is or the consequences thereof. Before we make a decision.
Time is something I don't believe we have, should we choose to support Oregon Fire in this venture. If you don't choose to support Oregon Fire, then we just need to make it known, in my opinion, because
Commissioner Murray, I don't think that is the goal, and I don't appreciate being insinuated that we're not supporting Oregon Fire. I'm
All right.
trying to look out what's in the best interest for the Port of Morrow and make good, sound legal decisions.
So if we make this motion, we pass it, and Joe goes and makes the motion as it's stated right now, the CDA would be able to sort that out, correct? They would be able to, we don't need to sort it out before it goes to the CDA board. We can just make the motion, if they feel it's not, or that they need legal, then they can do it, right? We don't need to pay our lawyer to modify this agreement. Because we have no say in it. That sounds logical?
That sounds practical, yes.
Okay.
I'll put this.
Well, so
Lisa, you were gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, if we give Sam 5 minutes to read this, I think we're gonna get an answer on what it says.
Okay.
But I'm just reading it now. And it looks like it's a two-party agreement that both parties have to sign to make a modification. That's what I
see too, the 30 days into negotiations. But
Yeah.
So this is absolutely under the perfect control of Boardman Fire. Is that what you're saying? No modifications, no discontinuation of this MOU can happen because it's just an agreement that they both have to agree to. Is that what I just heard?
no,
I think that's
not what I heard.
Okay,
I think that's what it says. But let's let Sam
okay,
answer that.
all right.
I mean, it says valid unless in writing and signed by the parties here too. I think this is an agreement between the two parties that both have to agree to modifications. That's just my quick reading.
I hope we don't write contracts like that. But without a chance to terminate them.
our agreements usually have a termination.
Right,
paragraph.
I was. I hope we don't make contract.
There's other stuff in there about the cost of providing the protection. I think that's where
Yeah.
something like else might come.
Sure.
Well,
Well, then, should we?
you want to, so there's still, there's a motion and a second.
So if I can, before you call for the vote, there is an arbitration clause in that as well. And so I think that would give them the ability to resolve that issue, whether it be through arbitration. So I think there might, again, I'm not an attorney, but I think that might give the legal means for them to have that discussion on how to resolve the issue.
So, I still would press forward the motion because it's really not our responsibility to arbitrate or to do research on this contract, or other than what Sam's giving us right now. This is a CDA issue, which I still want to vote on how this, I would like this taken to the CDA and let them work it out. And we don't have to, whatever the CDA decides, fine. But I would like it to move forward, so.
I'll call for the vote then.
Okay. So, trying to think, can I ask questions after you call for the vote?
Yeah, well, actually. So I'd have to repeat the motion.
Motion. I move to instruct the Port of Morrow CDA rep to make a motion that the CDA at their next meeting give 30-day notice to Boardman Fire terminating the insurance fire support agreement memo and direct that all CDA property in Morrow County proceed and apply ORS 478 for annexation and fire protection under, with, and from Irrigan Rural Fire Protection District. If we're not lawyers, then I'm not sure why, we're not, never mind, I won't go there.
Well, I think that's why we should be relying on our attorney for legal advice, so. Anyway, question.
There is a motion, yeah, and then question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
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 I'm not opposed to to be clear, the motion is intent, but I'd like to know more information on how to go about this.
I would agree. I think having legal advice to better protect the interest of the Port of Morrow or state, and our job is to protect the Port of Morrow, not anybody else.
Okay. With that, just for the record, to show that the motion failed, 3 votes to 2.
So we need the roll call.
You need to identify the votes.
Identify.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just not on a roll call.
Just in the minutes, so the
Just in the
3
minutes.
votes.
Oh,
Unless
yes.
they call for-
But did she get the names of who?
Yeah, she's got it.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, anything else on CDA? There is, I did send out I sent you the letter from JD Tuck. I didn't really need any action on it or anything, I just put it out there so you guys can see it. I don't know whether it's ready for anything to happen right now. It will probably come up in our discussions next week, but the old LDCC grant is, our decision, so it's not really.
So that decision for the grant, the way I understand it, our decision solely relies on us, whether we want to continue the grant or if we want to disband.
Yeah.
This fiscal agent. So I guess I'd like to know what my representative's thoughts are going into the meeting on these things that were sent to us.
Man, I have to read it now. What was that at? I don't think I printed it out for myself.
I didn't print it
I
out.
apologize. I know that the steps going forward, there was something there about maybe a grant that would require the fiscal agent to take steps for procedures for recording time.
I think what is laid out, Joe, was the 4 things that OLDCC came to us and said, we didn't get right.
Yeah.
And he wants to address those at the next board meeting to say, this is where we need to improve. Even if we're going to have another grant, or if we're not going to have another grant, these things need improvement on. And we need to move forward, the CDA needs to move forward with those, putting those steps in place and those safeguards in place and policies and procedures for the CDA moving forward, so this doesn't happen again. So we have fiscal policies and we have,
Budget.
yeah, grant overseeing and budgets and, time card issues, whatever those may be, anything that's, that we lacked from the letter from the OLBC is what he responded to with motions of how, he thought that went. I think his idea was that as a Port of Morrow, we're kind of falling on the sword, but the CDA and the staff has a lot of responsibility for what actually happened. And those things need to be corrected so they don't happen again.
I'll just read these motions real quick, just for the sake of, so that you guys know, if you haven't had a chance to read it. One of them, I move that I move that from April 1st, 2025, the CDA Executive Director is required to submit to the chairman of the CDA board a timesheet for each pay period for review. That timesheet will include a time and activity report that clearly records hours performing duties as the executive director. The timesheet shall be signed in person or electronically by the chair of the CDA board prior to being submitted to the fiscal agent. These timesheets and activity reports shall be made available to the board at their next meeting. I'm just going quickly through the motions. You have other comments in here too.
So real quick, John, I would just ask, if we're not the fiscal agent, who is?
Yeah, I don't know. But so
It would apply, I think it said.
I think it would, but I'm just, if we aren't, then who is, and can they actually become the recipient of the grant?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
The next one is I move that the Port of Morrow or any future fiscal agent provide a work session with the CDA board to present and explain their internal controls each year prior to the adoption of the annual budget. I move from April 1st, 2025, the timesheets that are submitted by the CDA Executive Director include a statement to the effect that this timesheet and activity report is true and accurate and no time reported as working on behalf of the CDA is also being claimed in other endeavors, including but not limited to holding and receiving compensation as an elected official, contracted work, or other positions for which I am employed. To discuss
Stick to that one. That's pointed to an individual, we should speak in generality, just the chief executive officer, right? Some of that is pointed to individuals, but shouldn't be. It should be, you're making decisions about the salary for whoever's there, for that position, not for that person. So I don't know. Is that aimed at, you see what I mean? Or that's what
I don't understand exactly that, but
well, then what if they don't work? Whoever's the chief executive officer may not work for may not be involved with the legislature. We get someone else. Why are we? That seems pointed to a person rather than a position.
Gotcha.
You're suggesting having a general
statement,
not so specific.
Not so specific.
Yeah, just a general manifestation. The next one is I move to affirm that at no time between December 2023 and the current date, salary increases for the CDA Executive Director were properly approved by the CDA board, and any supported directives that occurred in executive session would not suffice, since such inferred directives by the board as a whole can only occur in open session. And that, we are getting specific, and that's great for the CDA to sort it out. I move that at no time should salary adjustments be considered as a part of the grant agreement, which shall require and occur only after 1, CDA board approved executive director job description is submitted. 2, a duly adopted process for board evaluation on that job description. 3, creation of a CDA board approved organization budget that identifies sources and uses. 4, upon the affirmative approval of the CDA board of a resolution specific to the topic of compensation of the executive director of the Columbia Development Authority. Lastly, I move that these motions shall be in effect until they are incorporated into organizational documents that define the CDA operating procedures and controls, including but not limited to documents such as fiscal management policy, executive management policy, personnel management policy, etc. So that will be probably coming before you, Judge.
Possibly, yeah. So some of those, the salary statements and stuff. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna come of that.
Well, and I think it would, I think that's under litigation and potentially, could have some fallout. I don't know that we want to get involved in that discussion without. But there are several things in there that I agree probably will be good to have discussion on, try to get some structure, just like we would on any other position that we control, you know. So I think there's some good points there.
I would agree, there's stuff, a lot of good stuff in there that gets the CDA going forward and on the right track.
And maybe takes care of some of the issues that we have, the creative issue with the OBCC, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm generally supportive of these things, just.
Okay, Lisa, I asked you about a resolution. Is that something, that's an executive session item or?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I did draft a couple small paragraphs and I sent it to Sam. We'll take a look at, but I'd be happy to go grab that.
Should we come back to it or?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Sam Tucker here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I was just listening to those various separate motions. It seemed like each one was a separate motion. And just listening to what was said, the one I have some legal concerns about is I don't have legal concerns about what we do, what CDA does going forward. When it indicates that something was done in the past, possibly by the Port of Morrow, I think it had to do with salaries and they weren't approved, then we're getting into a situation where I have concerns from our legal perspective about whether the Port of Morrow or its representative should approve a conclusion concerning what happened in the past concerning those salaries from a litigation standpoint. I hope that makes some sense.
It does, yeah. Which I would assume Joe might want to visit with you before attending the next CDA board meeting, maybe?
Yeah, I'd have to think about that for a while, have it all sink in. But I do see your point. Yeah.
Because I don't bet these come up.
Did you want to come back to the, like later on that resolution, Lisa, or like later in the agenda, or? It's for another time.
You know. Yes, and I think we can talk about it in executive session, then you can come out of there and make a recommendation if you'd like to, because it is related to property transactions. So
Okay.
let's do that. And maybe Sam has time to take a look at that and see what I added to a resolution, but I'll go grab it and make copies for everyone.
Okay. Okay, anything else, can't really think of anything else off the top of my head, I want to ask about those three things.
So I guess I'm just kind of curious where we're at on the pause, I guess you would say, the 15-day.
So next on the agenda,
Oh, is that next month? Okay, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Okay. Okay, then let's move on to, item B there, OLDCC update.
Okay, so you have received copies from me about conversation with OLDCC about extending the termination. I asked for an additional 15 days and we were granted 15 days, which takes us to March 28th. So we have on our calendar prepared to terminate that grant in a letter to OLDCC at the start of next week. And that's what you want us to do. It's really what we talked about before, our only choice if we want to continue being eligible for federal funding. So that's definitely staff's recommendation.
How did the meetings go in Washington DC? Was there any indication of funding, say, another fiscal agent operates for the CDA?
We did not have a meeting with LDCC in Washington DC.
Oh,
So that got canceled. The Army or the BRAC canceled.
BRAC meeting got canceled. We did not have a meeting scheduled with OLDCC.
okay, so,
And other things have come through. Greg has been trying to get a meeting with them, so they all run together here on my email. I want to say next Wednesday Greg has a meeting, an online meeting
okay.
with BRAC to ask those things, what's going forward.
So prior to that, not that, I don't know that it changes, well, it probably doesn't change our action, but as funding for the CDA goes, we're highly interested, of course.
Yeah.
So,
In my conversations with DCC, I did ask that if we just terminated as the fiscal agent, if they would grant, consider another grant to another, one of the partners. I think they probably would, definitely something that they would consider in a conversation.
that would be great.
But funding for the CDA was on the wind down anyway, and likely there will be another year or two of funding.
Yeah, it's still a lot of money though. Good, I think that's probably why these motions came to us, for us to look at and give direction, because if somebody else wants to be the fiscal agent, are they gonna wanna step into the same situation that we have right now with no budget, no employee manual, or policy, none of that? I wouldn't want to.
I think that's a very fair question. Very.
Yeah, so just real quick, March 26th, this says Greg has a.
Okay. I guess I would say, Lisa, my opinion is we don't change our course of action, no matter what happens on the 26th.
Yep.
I think that we need to step away from that.
Yeah.
So
So
can I
maybe we'll see
have
that
direction to do
there's
that?
money coming forward.
Right, to a different.
Maybe to a different person, but there might be.
Yes,
Possible.
that's right.
I wouldn't give my hopes up about it.
So you don't plan on having a meeting before the 28th with us? I hope not.
I'm very sorry to tell you, but we're going to try and schedule another workshop next week,
Right.
to follow up on the one that we had this week, so.
Right.
We have some really tough decisions to make, and we want you all to hear the information that we're hearing, so.
You want us to wait until then to give you further guidance?
No,
Or- I think we've kind of been pretty, and I
We're
think
ready.
if we have to vote, we could vote. But I, for one, am in no way, shape or form willing to subject the board to lose any potential funding in the future. So I'm just not going to support it.
I'm gonna agree with you, Rick.
I guess I would make a motion, all right? I think we might as well give direction. But we withdraw from being fiscal agent. Give me the proper wording, please, if need be. Fiscal agent for the OLDCC grant.
Crossing the grade.
Or terminating the
The
grant,
grant.
Terminating the grant, okay.
yes.
And which means we're no longer fiscal agent. Right, I guess that's.
What year would that be? Just to add.
It would be as of February 21.
Yeah, February 21. We do have a final draw request to put in, so we need to get that accomplished.
Right.
So.
Yeah, okay, Eileen, sorry to interrupt.
If we want to talk about it a little bit more,
There is
more discussion or restate your motion.
I'll say that again, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, if we need further guidance or discussion, maybe you withdraw your motion so that we can further discuss.
Yeah, I withdraw the motion, then, thank you.
Okay, fine.
No, you're good.
We're looking for a date of, you're saying February 28th would be the date to do that? To withdraw if we were to do so?
Next
How much
Friday,
money?
next Friday is the end of our timeline that they gave
Well,
us
let's wait
for a voluntary termination. That's the language, voluntary.
And my
termination.
question, Eileen, to you is then, when you need to submit that request, you need to before.
As soon as I can figure it out.
Okay, so you need time to do that. So if we made it effective March 28th or March 27th, what do you need?
No, just give direction to Lisa to terminate the grant But as far as withdrawing as the fiscal agent, that's what we need a couple of days for.
Oh, I see.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So should it not be part of the motion then, or it should?
I would say not, just
Okay,
vote now to terminate the grant.
okay, I will move then to instruct Lisa to terminate the grant with the ODCC prior to the 28th of March.
I'll second that.
Okay, John's moved and we're in a second. Any other discussion? Questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion passes unanimous. Unanimous.
And I will follow up to say we are the fiscal agent because of the intergovernmental agreement that we have with the CDA partners. That's
So-
where the fiscal agent responsibility.
Okay, maybe give us some guidance. I don't know, if we done a workshop or whenever the next chance is. Or how do we unwind the IGA or that lists us or ask for an amendment of the IGA? So that we're not listed as a fiscal agent?
It doesn't list us, it just says one of the partners.
Oh, I see. So however we withdraw. fiscal
We're
agent,
probably just going to give our resignation to the CDA.
Okay, then we'll leave that up to you and Eileen, no further action.
So I think I had a question and I didn't get it, I asked Eileen in an email, if we were the fiscal agent just for the grant, or if we were the fiscal agent for the CBA as well. And I didn't know, she's like, oh, that's a really good question. So are we, we're withdrawing from everything, is that correct? Okay, that was just what I needed to clarify for not just the fiscal agent of the grant, but the fiscal agent. If we ever were, which was my question. Fiscal
Well, the
agent.
grant is terminated, so that is.
But there was funds that were from the counties and other places, not just the grant. And we were distributing those as well, so that was my
We
question.
didn't ever deal with that money. We were going to for about 3 days.
Oh, okay, so that's where it
And
actually took place.
Then that plan changed quickly.
Okay,
So they're in possession of their own checkbook and
Okay,
just like they have been all the rest of the time.
okay.
The CDA is paying itself, yes.
So just to be clear, the 1/5 that each partner is supposed to send in goes to the CDA checkbook.
now,
No,
no,
no, that's always part of the Port of Morrow because that's an agreement that has to do with the grant.
Okay.
but we're terminating that, correct?
No, we're still asking for our share from the other partners.
To pay us back.
Right.
Yes, but moving forward, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're not going to pay bills that aren't ours, that are or counties or someone else.
Well, that's a good question.
I don't know, I think that the CDA board probably needs to have this on their agenda next week.
We'll ask Joe
Yeah.
if he'll take that to the CDA, please.
How much are we on the hook for right now? So Joe has that information.
It's, the worksheet hasn't changed from the one I gave you last month. And I don't have it in front of me.
470,000.
And my plan was to go to the CDA meeting and remind the partners what the payments are that we're.
I know
Yeah.
Joe asked for, to alter the IGA, so that was spelled out in a better language so that we aren't on the hook for that. And I know it didn't get much traction, but I think we go back and still ask for that language to be put in the IGA so that we are not paying other people's bills. I just don't think that that's appropriate for us to do.
I think.
It
we
was
can-
fine when they were paying us.
Yeah.
Right, but there's nothing in the agreement according to their
Yeah.
lawyers that,
Like
Yeah.
to say the CDA taking care of it and we pay our share and then that's it. We should, yeah. We won't pay the other.
that's what I was asking, is
Yeah.
if we're gonna continue to pay someone else's bills.
And I would say the CDA is not gonna have the money to carry that unless
No,
they sell some property.
Right. With that CDA.
Well, and the Joe.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on OLDCC?
Not unless you have any more questions for us.
Well, hopefully with Brack next week, something they might shed some light on more of that. Who knows?
And we've talked about CDA bills, we've talked about termination, and we've talked about reimbursement of expenses through February 21.
Okay, well, with that, we'll move on to the next item, the WIFI update.
Okay,
So I asked Dave, something happened when we were there. I said, oh, hey, the board would really like to hear that, you know, or something. And to tell you the truth, I don't know exactly what that was. Dave immediately said, oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, but it took in a general terms.
Right, that's,
We did go to EPA when we were in DC. And I'll leave that.
okay, so David, Mark, Joe, and I went to a meeting with WIFIA. I think it was a good meeting. They're elevating the term sheet that they proposed to us originally next Monday to the next financing advisory committee, which is a 3-member group. Credit council. So we're continuing to answer questions as of even this morning, as we've been sitting here this morning with David and asking for additional term changes, but I think that we can just turn it over to David to give an update on how that's going.
Sure. Well, thank you. I'm glad I hear this time in person instead of on the video screen. And yeah, it was funny. Joe's comment was after the meeting was, hey, can you kind of bring that conversation down for? And sure, I'm happy to.
I might have said 3rd grade level.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
Anyway, as you well know, this has been, you know, an ongoing process for approximately 2 years now, trying to get, you know, funding for the industrial wastewater system, and, you know, Mark and Lisa and Eileen, and again, I have to, my job's kind of easy from the standpoint is that the staff here has made it easy for me when we're sitting down and talking to the potential funders. When information is needed, they've always been, your staff has been prompt, and they should be commended for their work and effort that they're doing. But with that, we progressed slowly, but I think this last week's meeting, we kind of came to the point where this is where we're at. And we need to look at their proposed term sheet pretty much in detail now to see if it's going to be a really workable plan. They basically said, here's the term sheet you're going to be working with, and to proceed forward. As Lisa just indicated, they're going to the credit council on Monday for additional approval for the funding. And then from there it goes to the administrator of EPA for final approval and sign off. So during this time with additional requests that came in just recently and we responded to, indications are from the director of the lithium loan program is that it should go through, but we don't know. We also asked the question regarding funding of lithium loans and existing loans and their current administration environment. And she gave the comment of things are proceeding as usual. They're taking new applications. They haven't stopped funding any disbursements. So it appears that from a WIPIA standpoint, their program is still going on as planned. There's been a push, I will say WIPIA has kind of made more of an urgent push on this over the last month and a half or so, because the senior underwriter that we've been working with for approximately 2 years is going to be retiring at the end of the month. So they want to get to the point where we get the final approvals. With regards to some of the terms that are in place, I'll give you one, for example, that I still struggle with in that. There's a provision in there that says you have to meet a debt service requirement ratio. So and that ratio is like, in their case, you know, after you pay all your bills, you have revenues available for debt service that equal $1.20 for every dollar in debt service. So revenues come in, you pay your O&M, you have $1.20 left to pay $1 in debt service. That provision says, and you have to calculate that every year. So in the event you miss that calculation at the end of the fiscal year, there's a requirement that says you will hire a technical consultant to come in and tell you within 30 days, you hire a consultant. They're gonna come in and make recommendations. They have to present that report in 90 days. And then within 60 days of that report, you need to implement these recommendations. And I find that to be unreasonable. I think if you should say, if we felt that company afford the opportunity to cure itself and make their own adjustments in the operations of the port. And then if there's another failure, then we bring in this consultant. That's just one of the kind of simplest ways of conditioning. And the other one, there's still some questions regarding the additional debt and some clarification of terms. But we're much closer, I think, to getting something finalized than we were since last December. And that's kind of where we're at right now. I know that we've had, I think I saw on the agenda, there's an update with EQ, I believe. Like clean water.
That's next.
Yeah. So we can wait on that, but that's kind of where we're at with the group right now. We're just waiting now on Monday to see where we're gonna go for the next steps. One of the things we really haven't worked on, but I did provide comments a couple weeks ago prior to the trip to Washington, was their loan agreement. And if you read the loan agreement, it's 112 pages. Brandon commented on it. I asked her to print it out for me. And there's just some provisions in there that, like I was just reading a moment ago, there's like indemnification language that I like to see revised. Basically, normal indemnification language in Oregon anyway, municipal finance is that, sure, we'll indemnify you, but if there's some negligence on your part, you're gonna indemnify us. So basically, we want that equal, right? If it's our fault, yeah, we get it. But if it's something you did, you should indemnify the port if it got to that. And some other provisions within that agreement. So I think and that's when all the attorneys will get involved and kind of hang out some of these details, but sorry, didn't mean to take too much time. Hopefully.
It's our number
Maybe
one.
nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, happy to answer any questions that you may have. And
The total dollar amount on the Whitfield loan request is
406, I think.
But we just changed it.
Yeah.
is different now?
Little higher.
Okay, well, two things. One, they never include the accrued interest in their number. So if we tell you it's 356, it's 356 plus however many years of accrued interest they let us take.
So the capitalized interest.
Right.
Okay.
And we have all of our match down, signed,
Yes,
sealed and delivered, which is exciting.
all the agreements are signed on match.
On match, explain that.
It's the match dollars that we use for freshwater side,
Right.
all the improvements we're doing at the airport and in East Beach, freshwater treatment plants. We use those for match dollars.
So ordinarily, Whitfield will not pay more than 49% of a project. Because our population is under 25,000, we qualify for up to 80, but we still have to come up with the 20% that cannot be federal dollars.
So just to ask a question, we, presentation last week, yeah, last week, this week.
It was this week.
You were here last week. Okay, this week, secondary water treatment, just to ask a general question, which will be a topic of conversation next week, costs how much?
145 million.
145 million. So should we decide, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm just saying, should we decide not to do secondary water treatment, that amount would come off our Whitfield loan request, I assume? Okay.
The thing with the Whitfield loan though too, is we could go ahead and get the loan. And if we don't take those funds out, they're not counted against us right now. If we decide not to build it,
Well, that is true, but I don't know if we'd be in violation if we didn't complete the project. We would have to get their approval.
That's part of with the agreement, is the secondary.
It is.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be drawing it, so.
Well, it would be, they would have to get, verification from Oregon DEQ
Right.
that they agreed before they would even
Correct.
There'd be
consider
some
that
modification
possibility.
would be required
Uh-huh.
from DEQ.
The secondary treatment is also part of our compliance, DEQ compliance plan too.
Yeah, that's right. I know there's lots of things to discuss next week.
Yeah.
of
If we
course.
did have our joint meeting with, the Clean Water Revolving Loan Team from DEQ and with, and so we applied for 50, we're on the list for 50. And they're calling this a co-lending, agreement, so the two teams are working side by side.
So we're back to 50?
We're only at 50.
Okay.
We're only at 50. I keep asking if we can apply for another 50.
Okay.
and They keep saying, there's a lot of other people that need money right now. so.
Right, okay.
So should we keep all of our focus on Withia, or are we maybe looking at other, financing options that might be a better avenue than Withia?
We continue to look at other financing options.
Would the other financing options have that debt ratio requirement?
Well, yeah.
Most of them do. I don't know too many guys telling you without it.
Yeah, okay, well, I kind of figured something.
It seems like if you said 120, I thought that was a pretty good deal, actually.
1.2 is not real hot, that's not a real.
When it came to work in the port, there was a 125 requirement on the existing debt at that time.
Yeah.
It would seem to me that it'd be nice to get the amount we borrow down, but again, big topic. Like, there's lots of things that go into
I
it.
would agree with you, but I think those are there's a lot to think of, especially 20-year impact from where we are.
Well, we're gonna take like 8 hours of your week next week and just talk about it.
Sounds like it.
So is it appropriate to ask, the other financing you're still pursuing, in conjunction with the state money? There hasn't been a decision on that, on if it affects it.
We don't,
I'm gonna say we don't believe so.
we don't believe so. We couldn't get a straight answer on
Explain what you're talking
I
about.
don't know what we asked.
I'm lost.
it. That's mine, but he doesn't know.
Yeah, okay. So if we went with somebody else other than with, it might,
Oh, the 50,000.
yeah.
Oh,
It should
sorry.
have been done.
2 million. Did I say 50,000?
What's
Long
that?
time ago.
Okay.
Well, then, we're okay.
It's just another zero,
I
right?
mean, it's a separate application process.
Couple zeros.
Project divided to fit the dollar amount, so. Give us another couple weeks and we'll have really good answers.
Thanks, David.
Okay, any other questions for David or Eileen, Lisa on?
I just had one question for David. Actually, he said that he didn't know of anything that had been pulled. Is that something that could actually happen?
I'm sorry, what?
When you were giving your presentation and you said nobody that you knew of yet had had any of their funding pulled, is that something that could actually happen?
You know, I think you flip a coin on that one, and that's on anything that's going on in Washington DC. We're not aware of anything, and even Withia had indicated that they're not aware of anything that's been pulled. It's business as usual. Matter of fact, it was a direct question to the director of Withia when I asked the question. And she made comments says, we're still funding our existing commitments within 15 days of a request. And they're still accepting new applications for funding. They're going forward with the porch request on Monday, it's to the credit council. So based on the conversation last week with the director, I feel confident that nothing's going to happen. But who knows what happens tomorrow, you see every day, see. But right now, it's business as usual.
I just thought it seemed kind of odd that maybe if you had a loan out there and then you had a contract with them and it could just be pulled away from you, that seemed.
It's not a grant agreement with the state that doesn't say if our funding doesn't come
Oh,
through.
really?
Yeah, no,
So-
it's there always.
There's been some grant programs, folks that have grants awarded to them at the federal level that have not received disbursements. But on the loan side, yeah, I have.
And no one we've talked to has thought that this program is in jeopardy, but who knows?
All the more reason to
Yeah.
keep working at.
I think,
funding sources.
yeah, I would hope Senator Murphy's office. Give us a
So
heads up.
I did go see Senator Monthly when he was here and we talked about it and I gave him an update on where we are and we, you know, if we need a call from their office, we will give their field staff a heads up.
And I think he and Whiting said that they would do a joint.
A joint letter.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Next is, CWSRF, I forget,
That's
clean water.
the state clean water,
250 million.
fund, So
Oh,
we.
that's right.
We just talked about that.
Okay.
Okay. So ain't nothing to add on to that,
Right.
okay. Morrow County Clean Water Consortium update. I'm going to go on.
We haven't had a meeting,
We haven't had a meeting. I wrote down county fiscal agent and budget, budget committee members. They're putting together a budget committee because they'll file just like every special district does. So I would expect that we need to propose 2 budget members to serve on the budget committee.
And you and Kelly will take care of that. I assume they're gonna be at large.
yeah.
If you want us to do that, we can do that.
Should you bring on like we do everything else?
Yeah,
Okay, it's up to you guys.
that works for me.
Okay. We can bring one of you if
Oh my gosh, you're running on a bunch of them.
Okay.
And then the, obviously the, federal money that we applied for, does everybody know?
Right, and Kirby did.
Kirby
Yeah, she-
said 2.2?
Yeah, so Morrow County on behalf of the consortium is the way that application is.
Yeah, and it was more looking like even a jump forward from water distribution from a municipal side to water distribution to those that don't fit into that municipal group. So if you were lived outside farther and maybe you needed a whole house filter or a deeper well or whatever you needed if you were farther away. So that's kind of where that funding was supposed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know when we have a meeting, do you?
I haven't seen. I was surprised that you said we're going to hold ourselves
Because
accountable to.
I saw an email between
Can I- is it okay
David
if I-
Sykes and Kevin Ince.
Oh,
Is it okay?
Oh,
if I
Dave's
ask
on the-
David
Dave's on the line.
Sykes? Commissioner Sykes, are you listening?
Yeah,
You want to jump in and correct
Did you
us
hear
on
the
what we
question
said?
about meetings?
sometimes I can't always hear the board. I can hear everybody else really good. What was the question again?
When will you have another meeting for the water consortium?
Well, just an update on it, yeah. Well, we have, we have an agreement for a director, which is Matt Jensen. We have agreement in place for the legal counsel, which is Eileen Eakins. She's the same woman that handles the CRAS. And we're close to getting a fiscal agent agreement together. She did that up for us, and her and Kevin are working that out. So we're real close to having that done. Senator Berkeley, of course, was here. I talked to him about our application, And then also his field rep, Jessica, put in a pitch for that. And so, yeah, I guess that's where we're at. And then working on the budget and should have a regular scheduled meeting in April. And I think that's what we got going right now.
Do you have a date in April?
Not yet. I'm gonna get that together. Our IGA calls for a meeting every 2 months. So I was kind of waiting to see when they got how we figured out the budget and well, no, as soon as I can find out when that meeting is, though, I'm gonna get it out to everybody.
So David, this is Lisa. He sent an email at 1:25, so. He said there was conflicting opinion on whether we need a budget committee. This email was written when Kevin's opinion was we need a budget. Since then, I believe he said we do not need a budget, so it's still that ongoing question about whether 190 IGAs are required to.
Okay, he called the state himself, what he told me.
That-
And he received the same answer that Ray received, that if it's not a council of governments, if it doesn't provide services to individuals.
That's correct. That's what I learned about it. Drill a little deeper, and it goes beyond just the 190, and that's what Kevin was figuring out. And we went one way, yes, we do, and then came back, and it's just what she just said right there. If you provide to the public, so I guess right now we're not required to. So see what the board wants to go from there.
Just as a suggestion, I think, could do a budget. It doesn't have to be through the public process, but just have a budget would be good.
Absolutely, and I would assume that this falls within, part of Morrow County's budget document, but.
Okay.
I think
Right.
it's safe better than sorry.
Yes.
It's not that big of a deal to put together a budget committee and yes, one or two
Because
meetings.
it could impact an individual,
Yes, it could. We could be serving someone's RO system or someone's well.
but
So
not
I do
every
believe,
individual.
we are providing services to individuals.
We've seen best practices, but I mean, it's public money that built this.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the way I feel. I'd rather have one. So it just we were just figuring out. Well, another angle of it too, and your financial person there might say it is, or comment on it is, how much of the budget rules and laws do we have to follow? As far as noticing, publishing, and all that. And does the board want to go ahead and do it, even if they're not required, or just have a budget adopted? So I think some of those are some of the questions I think need to be asked right there. I'm open myself personally. I would rather have a budget, and that's my personal thought. It works. Things work better that way.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Any other questions on information on consortium? Okay. Next is firm budget committee appointments.
Okay, so we have 4 open positions and we have recommendations for those 4 positions. And then we would like you to take action on those. So Lisa Curran is John's current representative. Clint Carlson was who Joel proposed. John Kilkenny is who Kelly proposed. Mike McNamee is who Joe proposed. And Vaughn Studer is on the 2nd year of a 3-year term, so we don't need any action on him.
That we took action on a couple of these.
You did all.
Well,
except for
I
mine.
think we did, but can we just do it?
Sure.
and have it done?
I would move that we approve the names presented by your budget committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, Rick has moved, John has seconded. Any other discussion on this item?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimous.
I have a conflict on April 9th, but should be okay. I'm gonna be out of the country.
Yeah, we've heard.
Hepburn, okay. I just wanted to say that again.
Feel sorry.
Last year he zoomed in at what, 2 o'clock in the morning or
Yeah, I
something?
did.
Okay, next is other, we've asked for a Hepner update to be on there.
Yes, so right now, we're waiting for the blocks from the county. So we could get the final 1200C from DEQ. It kind of opened up a can of worms in the planning department. We had to go back to Fish and Wildlife for the planning department to sign off on the Lux.
What is?
Even though we've already done all this stuff before, it's the land use.
Land use compatibility.
Compatibility study, so I think we've got everything worked out. I'm hoping this gets resolved in the next couple of weeks, John. But we're ready to go back out to bid. We've got everything taken care of where we put the spoils at, worked out an agreement there, so we're just waiting on the county. So,
Don't want this grant to go away. Or the approval from whoever it was.
yeah, the FEMA, that was a question too, because all the FEMA rules changed. In between what we got it approved and now, but it seems like they're gonna follow the old rules, so we're good to go there too.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, all right, well, I look forward to hearing that it's okay. Thank you.
Anything else on there? Okay, I also asked for PNW 8 on there, to be on there, but we pretty much covered everything we did there already, so.
As far as the conference went, they've shortened a day from a few years ago, so it's, now a day of in-house meetings at the hotel and then a day on, the Congress side, House side, and a day on the Senate side. And, when that happens, everyone goes in a room and we bring each of the senators and, congressmen to that room to talk to the whole group. Works out really well. It's pretty impactful when there's 85 people sitting in a room all working on the same issues. The in-house meeting, in the hotel was typical. We talked to, barging companies, we talked to corps engineers. We went to Oregon Ports Caucus, which, if you've ever been there before and went to a meeting with Peter Friedman, he's now not the one representing Oregon Ports, it's Ray Buhager. I think Peter is, retiring or moving on to other issues, so Ray's got a company and a new partner, and we met her. And, continuing to work on waterways issues in the state of Oregon, which is mainly dredging coastal, getting barges up and down the river. Anything else?
Well, the one thing I found interesting was when we were talking to these industry people, when the UP guy was there and the Burlington Northern representative, they gave a talk on train situations and all that stuff. They said that there is organized crime stopping trains to rob stuff from the trains.
Really?
And they said it's crime, it's organized outside the United States, but it happens here. And they said they didn't say what they're stealing, but they indicated that, they know what might be in a container coming over from the ocean. And they know where it's at on the train, so they do something 5 trains ahead that makes all these trains slow down or stop or change, and then
I was gonna say, how do you stop a locomotive that has 100 cars?
I don't really know, but they said it's becoming a problem, and I found it very interesting. That would be a problem.
Highly organized.
Yeah, he said organized crime from the southern.
Train robbery. Old school.
And definitely inside too, if they all manifest and everything.
Yeah, however that works.
That's kind of scary.
So,
Or hacking into some system.
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
Hacking into those.
They talked about a lot of safety stuff, how much more safe that trains are.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on other discuss? Okay, moving on to new business. Updated secondary treatment design and console.
We are going to postpone that to next week. Workshop.
Okay, and we'll be talking about that, a date for that later on here, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cybersecurity, and Rob's name is on that. We should have a sheet that they provided to us.
No, then have some slides.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was something different, but
No, there was.
That was
something there.
just for your informational, because I'll be referencing it in the slides.
okay.
Figure out prepping for this, found a quote that I really like. Effective cybersecurity is not a product, but a process. It's not just something you buy, it's something that you gotta continually be doing every day. And we'll get into some examples of that. That's one actually happened yesterday. So, the brief is going to be vague because I don't want to provide information in a public forum. So I open up if anyone wants further details to coordinate with Brandy and have a one-on-one session with me so we can go over more details and such. So, next slide, please. So just want to go over some of the qualifications that our team has, my team has. I'm the IT manager now, so I've taken over that role. So some Cisco certifications, some SonicWall, CompTIA, and basically 50+ years of experience. So next slide, please. So this is the sheet that I put on the desk for you guys to read. It was, we have a security policy in place. It was approved by the previous commission, so some should be aware of it. We do user training during onboarding with basic awareness, and we're trying to develop a more robust annual training for events. Next slide, please. We do have robust backups. We follow what's called a 3-2-1 strategy, which is basically 3 copies of your data, 2 different VM, 1 offsite. For us, we have data that is backed up to a primary site, and then it's replicated daily to a secondary site. Along with that, we have certain programs that are required to be offsite with a third-party vendor, and we follow those policies when they are required. We're now moving to a hosted platform for email, and we back up all that data daily, also to a third party. All of our Microsoft 365, which includes our OneDrive, SharePoint, all the services that we utilize for that is all once again backed up to a third party offsite. For our file shares that we use daily, they're replicated between our 2 different sites, and they are also replicated to a third party with daily snapshots so that we can recover files and move back. We have ransomware and such. So,
Can I say something here? So it's not always just ransomware, sometimes it's idiocy. And I'm not speaking for myself. Yes, I am speaking for myself, I put it this way. And in the past, we've had a real problem when we made a mistake. At this point in time, we can call Rob up and say, could you get us back our data for 9/12 this morning? And he can.
That's nice. That's wonderful.
And he manages to be cheerful.
my job, so I'm here to support everyone.
As you saw that I can call earlier.
So just kind of going over some of our software systems, we try and do automated notifications as much as we can. I have a couple of examples here. Keep up to date on security patches across the board, trying not to let those lag too much. We do get, especially with moving into our new platform, users are seeing when they're attempted to get phishing notifications or impersonations. We get that a lot here since we are a public entity, so our information is out there. So we get a lot of impersonation attempts, people trying to, hey, I need my direct deposit updated from fake email addresses and stuff like that. So, and of course, always on the hunt for better tools. Like we work with our vendor, they have us demo stuff, we demo, just always open to new things.
But you have training on these things fairly regular, especially phishing or impersonation?
We do try to, yes. We, I pay for the IT, we pay for a training platform for us to take courses and do that. and try to always keep up to date with everything going on, because it's moving so fast. So, go ahead, next slide, please. So this is, like I said, this is one of our notifications. It actually happened this month. A lot of these are false positives, but we still track them down to make sure. A lot of these, because this is our firewall detecting a connection to an IP address that potentially is used in something. So we track these down, verify nothing's going on. So go ahead, next slide. This is kind of our email statistics that this was from March to March 12th to February 12th. So that kind of says there's 3,000 out of the 20, well, actually more than that. We had 23,000 allowed, 3,000 blocked, and 12,000 was quarantined. The quarantines can be just the regular mass spam type emails or mailing lists and stuff like that. The ATP is an advanced threat protection. That's actually when someone sent an attachment or something like that and it opens up, and then it's like, Geek Squad, this, go here, do this. So it scans and blocks those. Go ahead, next slide, please. And this is us talking about phishing examples. The one on the left actually happened yesterday. It was sent, actually we found out it was sent to 3 of our employees. And it was pretending to be Lisa, asking people to go buy gift cards. So, like I said, our information's out in the public, so, and phone records and stuff. Second email actually came in February, and they're still trying to use Ryan's name. Like, we still have people still trying to say, like that, Brian, you know, when they're trying to get finance to approve and wire money and stuff, so we still get these. They're unrelenting, just constant, so. Go ahead, next slide. So, on our network security side, like this, we kind of, there's a little more deep terminology in this one. The big thing is we try and use as much filtering as we can, whether it's geolocation, botnet, domain name, or content. So we try and block certain countries that we know are, you know, not very nice. So we work on doing network segregation, splitting all, so one location is different than the other in our network structure. Like I said, I can go into more details if you guys want on that. We always try a year in advance to replace end-of-life devices. We're always keeping up on that, so you don't want something that's not supported. Do quarterly and well, firmware reviews. Sorry, getting dry. And of course, try and limit our public facing, like any of our services that have to be public facing. We try and limit ACLs on those to only those services that we need to connect to. So, go ahead, next slide. This is on our SCADA, operate OT and automation side. So our long-term goal is to work on it having its own network, running on its own fiber, so that we're not piggybacking on our normal network, just so it can be segmented and isolated completely if we needed to. So the software and configs are backed up in multiple places, so can easily bring a pump station or something back online or reprogram it. So all those are saved. The sites can run isolated if needed, but there are limitations with running that.
So your SCADA is your pump stations, your meters, your reading, things like that.
Yes.
All the stuff out in the field.
Yes. Yep. So, and then if we needed to from the vendor, we can request them and pay them to do a system audit if you want to. Send the slides.
It's a hot topic out there. The FCAO main speaker was, that's the whole.
Oh, yeah.
Of cybersecurity. We appreciate that. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
So,
That guy was amazing. Like
Yeah.
the story,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
we have,
I went back and watched the movie.
Oh, actually,
our email system has, what is it? Has quarantine Barracuda, is that part of all of this?
Yes. So that's where that one chart about the mails and everything
comes in with Barracuda, okay.
I need to give it to you because I did try to open mine and I password and then, anyway, I'll give you.
give you mine.
But
It
like I said,
happens all the time.
You want some more one-on-one, more details. I have a lot more details that I can provide you if you would like.
Okay.
okay,
Schedule
An
it.
example, 15 years ago in a town, 1,200, our banker from Murray's got an email from me supposedly, hey, transfer this much money out just to pay this bill. He did it without calling. And it showed up on our bank reconciliation. We called up and said, hey, this really wasn't us. And it was then a training exercise for the entire company.
I have a question for you, just a fun question is, when you find out through an IP address or that somebody actually tried to do something illegal, taking money or wiring money or anything, do you turn them in?
I haven't, but that's always a question of, but more problem is, who do you turn it into? Cause it's.
Finding an IP address is.
Correct.
Law
Yeah.
law enforcement get calls daily on this type of issue. There's no way for us to track it because by the time you go through it, you're in another country before you know it, and that's where we have to get the feds involved, and then they don't have the resources to track everyone. It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, they just
All of
rotate
these
IDs.
All these things, like John, we just had it happen in the local store. And the employee gave away $1,500. Again, it boils down to training.
Yep.
And if you're unsure, verify.
I see Wild Horse has something that got put out there for online gambling. Well, online gambling in Oregon is illegal, but somebody put that out there and has an app, and people were giving them money to do this, and now they're trying to fight that to get that back off of. It was on Facebook, and I imagine a lot of people put a lot of money in that before it was turned in
There's
somehow.
a lot of sophisticated scams out there.
Yeah, it looked just like Wild Horse, advertisement and everything. It would have got me.
Okay, the court did have one situation, and I was checking the bank account, and there was a batch, and it had four or five people's names, and they were all amounts around $5,000. And they all appeared to be well, anyway, I went right down the hallway to ask Gary what he was doing without telling me. And he assured me that he had done nothing. So I called the bank, and they assured me that that was done by Gary Neal and it was fine. And I said, well, I just came from his office and it was not. Now, the interesting thing about the whole thing is I had received a phone call the day before from NCIS, and I didn't believe the guy on the phone. So basically, they had, Gary had approved our payroll while he was at a meeting down at the Benson in Portland. And so his password was stolen at that time. So it was done with his password. And they had contacted these people, and it was one of the things, we're going to deposit this money in your account, and then you need to transfer it onto this account, and then we'll pay you.
Yeah.
And this one particular individual who had been contacted was the spouse of an active duty naval person. And that's why they were involved. They were wanting to warn us that they had gotten this. And anyway, of all of the ones, the bank was able to recover all but one of them immediately. One person had already transferred the money on. And whether they ever got their money back or not, we didn't lose any money over the whole deal. But, I mean, they were good. They were
good.
It was normal looking transactions. I mean, I just assumed Gary had gone down the hall and asked somebody to do something that I didn't know anything about. And that was not the case.
Well, I came away from the CAO conference worried about ransomware, they were talking about utilities and whole Dallas, Texas, so for 25 million or whatever it was. So in the port, if it was stopped, that was my concern. So I'm really glad to hear the presentations.
Now, we do lots of things with web backwards. So if we do get hit with ransomware, we can stop it and revert.
Great.
Thank you.
We just can't
Anything
get
else
out there
for us?
to them.
Okay,
No,
Whatever
thank you.
that dang thing is.
next is any other new business that we need to discuss?
Not unless you have anything. I've been gone for 3 weeks, so. We're going to have several meetings to catch up probably.
Okay,
But we need action.
staff reports. Did you want to go through all these, Lisa? We don't have a budget today, so. We probably got room to go through all these.
Staff reports.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, maybe on the staff side, I know, Joe, you had asked Jeff that you wanted him to come to this meeting. Do we want to introduce him to everybody so that everybody knows?
Yes,
Real briefly.
I'm glad you reminded me. Yes. You can do the introduction.
So Jeff, will you please stand and introduce yourself, give a little quick brief background, what you're doing for
Yeah,
us?
so I'm Chad Snyder, so you guys hired me to be the secondary treatment plant manager. So I have a background in wastewater treatment, I have a level 4 treatment for the state and a level 2 collection, so as high as you can go. I have about 13 years of experience with wastewater. I was previously the public works director for the city of Lafayette. Previous to that, I was the division manager for the city of Woodburn. So happy to be here, and look forward to helping you guys.
I'm aboard, yeah, right there. I haven't qualified stuff like it. It's very helpful.
Yeah, currently holding on to that.
Hit the ground running,
Yep.
and he's involved in all of our planning stages, which I think was very beneficial.
Were you able to live here in Morrow County?
I haven't moved yet, we're gonna be moving in June. So
Okay,
then my kids finish up school.
okay,
So,
good. Okay. Project updates.
Okay, do we have any pictures? Okay. I'll just start talking. So Farm 3 Lagoon, it's on schedule for completion in July. In fact, they'll start liner probably next week on that one. Lagoon 4, we've got all the existing old infrastructure out of the way. So we can start the construction of that. We're starting grubbing out there. That one's scheduled to be done before November. So both of those are looking very good. Secondary treatment, we turned in 90% plans to DEQ. 3 weeks ago. We should have 100% plans complete by the end of April. Farm 5. The IWW infrastructure we had up there is almost complete. We're just basically running through the punch list, stuff with IWW. We do have an irrigation.
IWW.
Industrial wastewater.
Words for that.
So that, I mean, everything's up there and running now on Farm 5. We do have an irrigation connection we need to do to make our manhole, but that's going well. Farm 6 is also ready to go. We should be pressure testing today or tomorrow. I'm not sure if that happened or not. We basically had to wait for the canal to get pressured up with water so we could pressurize that line with clean water and not wastewater. Not sure what's gonna happen there, guys. Our system's never been ran, but it's all hands on deck to make sure that.
so this is the system that's been in.
Yeah, it's the system, it's the wastewater system that was on the farm,
Oh, I see.
but it was never operated.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Might be some dry gaskets somewhere.
There, yeah, there might be something there, but we're hoping that, I mean, most of the stuff that was down out there is actually pretty good quality, so.
So did you get a diagram, of when? you-
Oh, lots.
We got
Lots of
lots of diagrams.
Yeah,
So you kind of know where it's not like.
Showing,
they were really good with the information they provided to us.
some of it isn't exactly what's on the plan, but.
Plans change.
So, let's get into let's go to Farm 3 Pond.
It's getting there, it's almost done, guys. Well, the earthwork's almost done, that's pretty exciting. They'll line probably half of that lagoon. And then they'll walk down the barge, set the barge in place. And walk out and finish. There's not a crane big enough to set the barge up there. Unless we were to fill it all the way up with water. Float it, dam safety wouldn't let us do it. Because that was our approach, dam safety wouldn't allow that. So we had to be able to pump the water out in case there was ever an issue.
So remind me, 48 acres? And how many?
No, it's 60.
60 acres?
68, 7 acres.
And how many gallons?
750 million gallons.
750 million. Okay.
Yep. On 5. That is the new pump station. And these are the manifolds outside too, all those connections. So that's the part, a lot of that's the freshwater part that they're finishing up right now.
Let's start our conversation we have with Madison. So Farm 5 is up and running. You must have crop decisions. Are you involved in the crop decisions that go there, or?
Yes, we are, yeah, and it's all alfalfa and corn out there.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know when that came into the mix, but I assume it's planning time, right?
Yeah. Airport. That is the new distribution facility there. See the 2 million gallon tank on it. Wow. It's the same size as what's in East Beach, that tank that's on Lewis and Clark and that way. And then the new freshwater treatment facility will go next to that. So, and we've already bid that out. It's bid out, we sent an intent to Inco. So they're gonna hit the ground running on that. So we should have those treatment centers done within about 16, 18 months.
Is there a date that those Amazon sites are looking to be in?
Yes, so these, both freshwater treatment plants have to be done within 2 years. So, and we actually had, a year ago, we did long lead procurement items from them. They got POs and paper, there was almost $20 million of long lead. So that we could meet these days moving forward. This one. Governor Swanson. It's kind of long, right? Been out on that one for a while. So that's gonna go from PDX 109 almost to Columbia. There'll be a roundabout at the bottom of it that everybody has to come back. We will have an access road going all the way through. But it'll just be an access road. It won't be a public road. It'll be more like for a highway and heavy road. So that we can bring everybody around and hit any bridges to get out to center. So. But the utility portion of that project is basically all the pipes are ground. Well, 6. That's the new well down by Marquette Grand Rovers on the river. Okay. That was part of the PDX 170 improvements that they do for it.
On something like this, the water rights accompanied as well are something that the port already had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we just are accessing the water using the right we already have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How deep is it, or?
That one's 700 and some. It's not as deep as like 12.5.
It has to turn and go toward the river though.
How far into the river?
No, it's not the rainy well. That's actually a salt well. Oh God, you guys have any questions?
I think so. How about maintenance? Is that run right in?
Yeah, that ran right in Vans right there. I know that the landscape's doing a lot right now, with a lot of cleaning up. They're gonna be doing a lot more landscape too. We're having Amazon for the landscape of their facilities that they pay for. They'll pay for all the infrastructure to do it and also pay us to rotate. Try to
make East Beach look a little bit better.
Okay, moving on to financial updates.
Since I made this is my financial update.
Okay, you'll see that our unrestricted cash did go down $1.5 million. It's still well above the required reserve amount. We had a little minor hiccup with our Amazon billing, which has now been resolved and the money's now back in the bank. You know, we brag about them taking no more than a week and a half. Well, I think it took us 3.5 weeks, so it cost a little dip for a very short amount of time. We do have some areas of unsurprising over budget amounts. So if you look at the overall total, you'll see that we are at 68% on materials and services, whereas at the end of February, you would hope to be under the 66.67%. And that is primarily in, well, it's a relatively lower amount, but in freshwater under testing and permits and insurance, and in wastewater under testing and permits and legal costs, and the lease amount for wastewater. It said wastewater expansion land. It really ended up being not just the wastewater expansion land, but also the leases on underneath the ponds. And it's not as bad as that looks because we made annual payments, you know, but we will need to increase that over the coming year. And our legal costs are a little bit higher than we anticipated. Again, in the wastewater category. Those are the primary areas of, well, okay, if we move over to sites, we have, again, testing and permits and legal services. So, we will be looking at that closely. I can't tell you yet whether we are going to be requesting a budget appropriation change. My guess is we will be asking for one in the next month or two. But it's definitely things to be watching when you look at the proposed budget for next year. I guess along with that, on the wastewater, we did have more farm rental income than we had budgeted for, which is what's been allowing us to maintain our cash balances.
I was gonna ask, when do we need additional financing to keep projects on time?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, I mean, when are we going to need additional funding to keep projects moving? Or are we okay for the time being? You know, we talked about the winter.
We're working on this summer, but we really have 2 years before we have an issue.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Whitfield should be done by this summer.
Okay.
It's in its last stage.
Something else.
David?
Isn't it great to be here first?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Friday? Okay, next is youth reports.
Okay, hopefully you have an extra usage report. I'm not really sure why we never gave you the wastewater as opposed to just freshwater number, because those are different, and I'm hoping it's in here. I thought it was kind of interesting that on average, we average about 70% wastewater compared to our freshwater volume. Like freshwater, we're on track to be lower than we were last year, but actually a little lower than the freshwater number. We're running at 81% of last year's volumes so far this year.
These numbers that might continue,
Pardon?
are there gonna be a new lower level? Or,
Well, some of it, yes, some of it, no.
okay.
There was some shutdowns in there and stuff that.
Yeah, they did some deliberate shutdowns and perhaps there's a line that's not going to run for a year that will keep it down for a while.
For a while.
They also did some updates to the sort of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on usage reports that it has? Okay, any other staff reports you have? Okay. Other reports, so I don't see Willow Creek on there anywhere, do you?
No.
Okay. BCBA.
Tori cannot be here.
And her report is in your pocket.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Icabo, is there anything from Icabo?
Sewer system going forward.
Or the schools get closer to, yeah,
We canceled a bunch of RV parks.
they canceled a bunch of RV parks. Most important of all, what we didn't do, yeah.
So what do you mean canceled RV parks? You had some plans for?
Bonnie Crown wanted to do a bunch of
Already
RV.
did a bunch, yeah.
We already have 2 in town. We're only a town of 300 people. I think 2 parks is sufficient. Plus, then we actually have 3 because we have a city like that.
Right,
Completion of both those projects of sewer and the school or roughly,
they're rough, yeah.
near done, you mean? Or?
You know, we're looking at September, October for the sewer system.
Yeah, and this school seems to have loose ends. But maybe that's
I heard the track broke down to 6 lanes from 8.
no,
It's a nice track though,
The
except
schools.
for the,
except for the truck, yeah,
yeah, the guys ran out there with the boom truck.
in the mud.
Oh, yeah. Contractors.
The money that we're managing for the city of Ion and city of Hefner, if you remember, it's $1 million to Ion for sewer.
Yep.
And $1.5 million to Hefner for sidewalk. I think it's all sidewalk road improvements. We've been waiting a long time to get that contract through with the state. And they've just suggested now, since the port's not going to be the owner of the assets, that the quickest way to get through it is to add Ion and Hefner as a party to the agreement. So I think that's what we're going to do and try to get that done and out the door so that both cities are trying to get their projects done.
I only need some agreement.
We're hoping this eliminates the step of for them to have a separate agreement between us and each of the entities.
Okay, any other reports you need to? Okay.
No, and before we go into executive session, or maybe we want this resolution after we go into executive session, we'll wait for that.
So we will schedule a workshop for next week before we go into executive session.
Yes.
Yep, let's do that.
So
TDA is the 25th, right?
That's right. And.
And how long do you anticipate that meeting?
She said 8 hours.
I was just kidding. You know, I'm gonna say 3 at the most. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, it should be. about
We will go more in depth on the information that Jake provided you that you couldn't read on that screen, so he will break that down, bit by bit and go through that with you. And we will have a consort,
Yeah.
which is probably 45 minutes of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll have parametrics too.
And parametrics, and then we will start having discussions about
It's
secondary treatment.
parametrics, the one Jake talked about, that's doing a lot of numbers. Well,
They're the ones that do all their environmental engineers.
right.
They're great, they are well respected by, the state, so they've
Really
got a
respected
really
by the
good
DEQ too,
contractor for
because
us.
Their work documents that they hand over at the end of the day are easy to understand, they're clear. They do a really good job.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna strike first then. Tuesday and Wednesday are best for me.
What's the date?
Wednesday, the 26th. Wednesday would be good for me. Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday is better, so. Wednesday would be fine, depending on what time, and 27th, Thursday, so.
And I can't do Thursday, I'm covering pharmacy that day, so.
Well, I'm good with the 26th.
I'm good at the 26th. also.
Okay, so 26. I've got a call from 12:30 to 1:30.
So we start at 9 and we'll be done by.
Parametrics,
12:30.
client assessment and
We
vector.
can
con-
move, we can just have them do it here.
And we can move the vector control land swap to maybe Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's at 8:30, right?
It is it. We could probably get that done in a half hour, or ask Greg to come at 8. Okay, we'll move that. So 9
Is
to
Thursday or
12.
Wednesday work for you?
I think so, okay.
Let's do 9 to 12.
No, it's on
Put it
Wednesday.
on the lookout.
Yeah,
Work for you?
that works on.
So what time?
9 to 12 on Wednesday,
Perfect.
the
I could do
26th.
that.
Okay.
Did you say the 26th?
Yes.
Yes.
Quick break and then.
Okay, let me read this executive session. Before we'll hold an executive session meeting for the permissible reasons stated below under ORS 192.6602. Representatives of news media and designated staff and other persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience will be asked to leave the room. The public virtual Zoom meeting link will be closed during the executive session as permissible executive session meetings are not subject to HB 2560. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions will be made in this executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room in person and open the public virtual Zoom meeting link. So, A, for the purpose of consideration of deliberations with the port's executive director and other staff members who have been designated by the port to negotiate real property transactions, ORS 192.6602E. B, for the purpose of consultation with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. ORS 192.662, 192.6602H. And with that, it is 3:33. We'll recess our regular meeting, take a short break, and then reconvene in executive session. Okay, it's 4:33. We'll reconvene our open session of our regular meeting. Okay, so there's direction on land.
Yes.
Using exhibit A.
Good.
Authorized to negotiate and execute.
Is there a motion out there?
Also move.
Yeah.
That's a little bit, negotiate, I guess it's what we call IWS or, on sale of property and,
Purchase and sale agreement.
in the purchase and sale agreement,
Right. of first
and
refusal.
ending the right of first refusal.
Yeah.
on exhibit A, property exhibit A.
I'll say that.
Okay. Exhibit A, we wrote that down. Okay. Joel was moved and Rick is seconded. For I've already lost track of where I was at, sorry. On our motion.
Lisa negotiate and execute.
Execute, sit, purchase sale. Okay. Any other discussion on that?
So I would just state, just for the record, that we make sure that we attach a copy of, the exhibit to our packet, so we have it for future reference.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passed unanimous. Okay, anything else about for the good of the order?
CDA?
I have one more matter. Just an observation for future references. Earlier, you made a motion, approved a motion to have Lisa generally withdraw from the grant agreement by March 28th. I think it would be preferable to authorize the person to withdraw the agreement, but not give a date certain, because what happens if there's some negotiations between now and then, that there would be another extension and other things happening? So a more general approval that authorizes them to do it than to say they have to do it by a date certain would probably be better in the future. If you know what I mean, make it so there's flexibility with the staff, because this is a moving target and we don't know what's going to happen, and things could happen where you might be having to call back into a special session because she doesn't want to do it on the 28th because there's another development. So that's just an observation that I think would make it work better in the future.
How about if necessary?
Say that again.
And,
You're right.
and if necessary to the motion.
Well, I'm not saying you
Right.
need to change it this time, but that's my comment. If you want to change it now, that would be a good idea, because, it just makes it so it'll be smoother in the handling of it.
As of right now, we have to voluntarily terminate by March 28th.
That's right, but it could change, and that's my point.
No, there's a crack meeting. We do not know about any further conversations with OLDCC. I have not had those.
I think if we come upon any changes, we could probably.
You're going to know immediately.
Yeah. And
I think we're okay.
I think Stan just recommending in the future, I'm not comfortable going and changing something that we've already motioned in
Okay.
and voted on, especially since there's nobody here.
Okay.
I'm good with that. Thank you, Sam.
If something comes up, you will.
Yeah. Okay. So CDA, that resolution.
Yes.
So as the resolution that I'm looking at is before me, I'm not comfortable in the language. So I would propose that we engage with further discussions, both with legal counsel and Lisa, further address the language of the agreement. And I would take anybody else's suggestions onto my motion.
I can read you what I just wrote. I just wrote, Lisa to work with Sam and Joe to negotiate language to propose to CDA for any release of 100-acre parcel for CDA land sale.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
So will that come back to us again?
I
guess somebody should second the motion. Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, Rick has moved and Kelly has seconded. On that motion.
It is, I think it should, I think it could, because we're just negotiating at this point. I don't know that CDA is going to try and approve this resolution on Wednesday of next week.
Yeah, well, next week is only a budget committee meeting. right?
No, they're supposed to have a regular
It's
meeting.
supposed to be a regular meeting. too.
It's not what's on the agenda, it's not what's on the website. It says budget committee meeting.
It does.
It does. There's no CDA meeting next week that I
It
know.
was, at the last meeting, it was called
Yeah.
as a
It
meeting.
hasn't been advertised, I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
And that would
I don't
have to
think
be,
it's been advertised yet.
I think they have to do that by Friday.
Okay, I'm just saying it's, you know, it's not planned as far as I saw.
So you
Oh,
said,
well, I was gonna see if we could get on the agenda for them to look at least.
Oh, you're in a budget meeting, no?
No, in a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Regular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to have a discussion in open session about was going to that meeting on the 25th, if that's when it is. Just to remind everyone what they do over Fort Morrow.
So maybe where that isn't necessarily part of our motion, that we have that discussion.
You're right,
Unless you
sorry,
think it-
we're just talking right now.
Yeah.
Unless you think it
You're
changes
on that.
the direction of our motion.
Okay. Okay. So they have a motion for Sam, myself, and Lisa to work on this resolution to give to the CEO. Any other discussion on it?
So so are you requesting that it come back before the commission? So I would be willing to, if you feel we have plenty of time, to amend my motion to authorize the said language that we gave earlier and then bring it back before the commission for further discussion.
And you're okay with that?
Yeah,
amendment?
yes.
Okay,
I'll be second. that.
okay, there's been amendment to it and a second on that. Any other discussion? Okay.
I have a question. If I could, sorry about that, people. I just have a question. Does that mean next Wednesday on the 28th, if somebody brings that up before CDA, that Joe can't vote on it?
that's the point I was wondering about for,
Is that what you want?
You're right.
I mean, this may be out of our control on Wednesday.
Yeah, Joe knows what he's supposed to do. We'll negotiate it and they'll take it back unless there's some reason why we want Joe to act immediately. It might be thrown at him at the meeting and wouldn't it be tragic if he couldn't even vote?
How about if we have a meeting on Tuesday, that we're advertising it as a work session, but we could have a meeting with one topic on it to flush out any negotiations we've made with CBA
On Wednesday,
Tuesday.
we have a meeting Wednesday.
Our meeting
Are
is
you
Wednesday.
just finished with?
CDA
Our
meeting,
workshop meeting is Wednesday.
yeah,
Wednesday
and the CDA meeting is on Tuesday,
Right,
in the afternoon, and it's here.
that's not gonna work.
So your motion is to bring this resolution back to us to include once
Yeah.
it's wordsmith some more.
Yeah,
If we, I guess that might muddy the water as to what do you do if this is brought up in the CDA meeting, and what action do you take on it now?
Lisa, can I ask a
If I
question?
don't have a resolution approved by you guys.
Well, I mean, your authorization from us to vote as you see fit, but, I mean, unless this binds you, then you're stuck, I guess, if we pass the resolution.
Remind me, Lisa,
Motion.
did I read in the agreement that land sales are unanimous vote at CDA? Is that correct?
I don't think so. I mean, we
It's still
still
two
purchase and
Oh,
sale.
yeah, we did.
For,
3-2.
three to two wins, I think, right,
Okay.
Sam?
I like there was something in there that you had to have. Maybe it was to change the IGA.
Yes.
No.
Maybe that's what. That's what it was.
So are you proposing that the three of us negotiate and get back to you if a meeting can be scheduled before CDA requires a vote?
We do a quick Zoom meeting?
Ellie, I didn't hear that.
I said, could we do a quick Zoom meeting? Send out the changes and
So do you anticipate any changes to what we've discussed.
Well, I guess we've discussed a lot of things. We've discussed splitting the money, making sure that this money is spent in Morrow County. If there's two resolutions, if they both said 50-50 on county, it would be the same. Or it's not going to be that we get 4 million cash and they put 2 million into the development.
Are we happy with either of the two projects?
Oh, we would have to be happy with the project on Morrow County side.
But I think that's what I'm saying is the board has to agree to whatever project. moves
Yeah.
Forward.
That was what we talked about
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that will be in the resolution.
Yep.
on the Morrow County side.
Yep.
Right, and so I'm comfortable with that language. But do you anticipate any further language changes?
The other thing I'm proposing, the other thing I'm proposing is those few words at the end of that last resolution that says, and acceptable to the port. And I think that's as innocent as we can be, non-controversial as we can be, in hopes to get it by. And those two changes, those were the two that I would advocate.
Has this resolution gone out to all parties of the CDA already?
They've seen it. It's been out there.
For a couple months?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And all I'm doing is trying to get it to look like something that our board
So
can
we're,
agree on, and then take it to the CDA board and ask them to pass it.
And all I say, as is written, I would not recommend approval.
I would agree.
We need control of what's going on.
so really, we don't need to talk to anybody except amongst ourselves and with the executive director of the CDA. Change this document, and then Board Morrow takes it and introduces it, right?
I think that's what.
Okay,
But it's always better to make the motion. I mean, than to wait for them to make a motion and disagree with it.
yeah, that's why I think we should change it amongst ourselves, and then we take it to the CDA.
Okay. But do we want to take it to the CDA
Tuesday.
this coming Tuesday?
We don't know if it's on the agenda even, because it's not out there yet.
It probably isn't, but I was gonna ask it. So.
Well, if it's not, then we've got time.
Yeah.
If it is,
Joe's a short time where he's trying to get some stuff done.
This thing transferred.
So, it may not be such a big deal for next week, because, they're talking to the Army on Wednesday. So you just don't know.
Well, for me, as it's presented, I'm not in favor of it. With the additional changes that we've talked about, I could support it. But as presented now, I'm not in favor of it.
Well, we have a motion anyway, we can vote on that does address those issues, I think, so, we're gonna vote, I think, as long as everyone has a clear understanding of what we're trying to shoot for. Does it need to come back, though? The motion includes bringing it back to the Port Commission.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if the changes that are made are what we discussed, what are we gonna approve?
Yeah.
I mean, if we approve today with those said changes, why are we, I guess, coming back to review it again?
Right, and we're really not negotiating with anybody to make these changes either, we're just making changes.
Yeah.
We're relying on Sam and Lisa to word those changes.
But this isn't our agreement either. I understand that.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
No,
So-
it's not.
So we're just making a suggested motion
Yeah.
that fits us.
Yes.
So I don't need to see it as long as it's put into
Yeah.
what we talked about, the things you mentioned about control over the infrastructure and stuff.
But I think the way Stan stated it there, as long as we have to agree to it, it gives us that control.
All right.
I think so too.
The amendment, the motion would have to be amended.
Yet again, so I would move to amend the resolution to first version of the,
Can I try? Can I try? Can I try?
Yes, Sam,
You are eloquent, but let me give her a try, okay? You motion to not approve the resolution as written, but approve a resolution which will have the two changes we discussed what were those, Lisa? Would be, are acceptable to the Port Commission.
Yes.
One,
Yes, well, you're gonna go back and read these and.
yes.
Um. Whereas on such and such a date, CDA entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Port of Morrow for all lands in Morrow County. Port of Morrow wants to partner with CDA on the sale of property of 100 plus or minus acres in Morrow County. Be it resolved that Greg Smith will bring the Port of Morrow in on the negotiation of a
Greg's-
particular parcel.
Executive director.
We were to make the change.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Well,
take
we'll
Greg's
have to-
name out of
So
that.
that's the second change.
I mean, we're gonna make this sound better than it sounds, so it's written in 3 minutes. With approval of the Port of Morrow necessary to move the sale forward. Last one is be it further resolved that all proceeds from the sale of property shall be reinvested to support economic redevelopment of the property conveyed to the CDA. We're probably going to say in Morrow County or 50-50, depending on what's.
Or
going on
as
with the
approved
other
by
side.
the port,
And acceptable to the Port of Morrow.
Yeah.
acceptable to the port.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah.
You're okay with that amendment, Greg?
I would, so moved. With said language, yeah.
Good. Yeah, what you.
I will re-second that.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Funny how Rick got away with it.
All right, is there anything else for our good of the order?
Wanted me to send on to you guys the calendar because we talked about this session, and so I forwarded that on to you guys. 2025 session is constitutionally obligated to end after 160 days. It began on January 21st, so it must conclude by June 29th. I forwarded that on.
Okay.
I think everybody knows the reminder of the SEI final, make sure you do that.
Yep.
April 15th.
Can you make sure that we have the right legal, can you just send us out a little thing?
Can you do what?
Make sure that we have the,
List of our state.
CFM.
lobbyists.
For the SEI filing.
Remember CFM had names that weren't people we deal with?
Correct, and we checked with them and they said they were all involved in the peripheral of
Some
our.
of them are not using all of those names, so.
Okay, so what are you having to report?
Who our lobbyists are
For our state law.
for our SEIs. You have to report all of them, anybody we use.
So we'll just give you the list
Yes.
that we list.
Okay,
Yeah.
but could you send that out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it may change every year, we don't, so that's something that we
It
should
could.
know every year.
I asked Eileen like a month ago and you already confirmed the list,
Yes.
at least that you sent to me, Eileen, so you have it already. So.
Okay, anything else that we need? Okay, hearing none, let's see what time is it? It's 4:52, I will adjourn our meeting.